So very good afternoon, everyone. So we have now with us Abhay Singh, Deepak Thanwani, Dipti Rakesh, Harshit Gupta, Lagan Mahipal, Mihir Agarwal, Sagar, Sahil Khandelwal, Shubhang, and Surbhi Singhal.
Deepak Thanwani present, sir.
Okay, those who are coming afterwards, Deepak Thanwani also. Fine. So whosoever, Lucky Chaudhary has also come up. So whosoever will come up will join, and we will have another attendance at the end. Right. So as yesterday's class actually, you know, the things got crashed. So I will be taking the things which we have discussed yesterday again. Okay. So let us just discuss certain things which we had discussed yesterday. So yesterday we had something related to Rishabh Goyal. Can you please mute yourself? Better I mute. Fine. So about the capacity to contract, and that was a contractual capacity or capacity to contract. So capacity to contract is actually regarding minors. So minors can be there are three type of people who are not regarded as or who are regarded as incapable of taking the decisions, or incapable of you can say your CR is calling now. Yes, Chirayu. Why you're not in the class now? Huh? क्या चीज? हाँ, क्या बोल रहे हो? दो लिंक नहीं है?
Yes, sir. There were 2 links open.
Okay, you just quit that link and just switch in some other link. Yeah, and tell everyone to just leave that link in which you are there and switch to other link. I will delete that link, but meanwhile I will be getting the things right. Okay. Mind, these all confusions will go by the time, don't worry. Okay. So capacity to contract, those who are incapable of entering into a contract are minors, lunatics, and persons who are disqualified from the contracting by any law to which they are subject to. So the legal yardstick to measure the maturity according to the law of contract is that both party must be major and of sound mind, and if the law has presumed that the maturity of their mind has not reached to extent of the visualizing the pros and cons of the act, then again they will also be protected in one or the other way. Okay, so contact with the minor, as I have already told you, is void. So minors are of two types. One is from the natural birth, a person who has who has not attained the age of, by default everyone who has not attained the age of 18 will be treated as a minor. A person who, for whom the court of ward has appointed a guardian, so that person will become major only at the age of 21. And contract with the minor is absolutely void. And this was one of the case where the minor borrowed 20,000 rupees for the sake of mortgage which he has done in favor of Y, and as a result of that mortgage, this 20,000 he has taken, and he actually spent this 20,000. Then afterwards, when the mortgage was to be executed, it couldn't be executed because the contract was done by minor. So the person who has advanced rupees 20,000 for the sake of the mortgage has lost both the things, mortgage also and 20,000, because the contract was done by minor. So minor can be admitted only to the benefits of the you can say the benefits of the contract, not for the for any other things. So in such a case, minor will not be liable. So you cannot hold minor liable for any of the things. So rationale to protect the minor interest is only one, that minor are considered not in capacity to understand the pros and cons or the consequences of the contract. That's why law provides the this protection to the minor. So there are certain points which are to be considered in respect of the minors, that a minor contract is altogether void and minor cannot bind himself to the contract. If the minor has obtained any benefit, such money or mortgage, he cannot be asked to repay, nor his mortgage or property will be liable to pay. More BP versus Dharmodas Ghosh is the example for this. So since the contract is void ab initio, it cannot be ratified by minor even after attaining the majority. So next is estoppel is important principle of the law of evidence to explain. Suppose, for example, X makes a statement to Y and intends that the latter should believe and act upon it. Later on, X cannot resile from his statement. But this principle of estoppel doesn't apply on minor. If minor tells someone that I am a major, enter into contract with me, and then after he says that okay, now I was a minor at the time, so the person with whom the contract has been entered will be in problem. Or you can say he cannot, the person with whom the minor has entered into a contract, even by just overshowing his age, or you can say misleading his age, will also be considered, will not be considered as a contract, and it will be void, right? So even he can just overshow his age and do the thing. So it is a duty of the major who is entering into contact with the minor to confirm his age and do the things. So for all the things, the major will be responsible. Minor will skip his responsibility by the operation of this law. So, but any time if some fraud has been done, so minor has done some fraud and he has actually embellish the money. So at that time, the court may direct the minor to restore the property to any other party from whom the property has been taken. For example, the loan has been taken from someone, and the minor is able to take, suppose, a loan of 20,000, and 10,000 he spent, and 10,000 is still recoverable. So 10,000, which is still recoverable from him, will be recovered from him and will be restored to the person whom it actually belongs to. So this relief is achha. One more thing is there for the specific relief. Under the Specific Relief Act, the court, if the minor has received any benefit against the agreement from the other party, still you cannot require minor to go for a contract. For example, the minor has contracted with some other one to paint a beautiful picture because minor is a very good painter. So at the time, if minor has painted the picture, then it is okay. If minor, even after taking the money, has refused to paint the picture, you cannot realize the money from him. Neither you can force him to paint the picture. So specific relief cannot be taken from the minor. Or minors, next is minor state however will be liable for the reasonable price of the necessities. For example, you find some minor dying on the road because of the accident, and you have taken all the steps in order to make him good, or in order to leave him at home. So all those expenses which you have made in order to make the minors good, this all will be realizable from the property of the minor. So that necessities supplied can be realizable from the property of the minor, but in that case it has to be something which is a reasonable one. Unreasonable things cannot be taken as such. So any agreement by a minor being void, the court will never direct the specific performance. I have already told you. A minor can be agent, but he cannot be a principal. So a principal is because principal is responsible for the acts of the agent. So a minor can be agent. So principal will be held responsible for all the acts of the agent as such. So he can, however, be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. But in case of losses of the partnership, you cannot just compel minor, or even you cannot ask anything from the minor to make good the losses which has been done in partnership. But in case if partnership earns profit, minor will be having all the rights to receive that profit which the partnership has earned if he is a partner. Since a minor is never personally liable, he cannot be adjudged as insolvent also, because there is no liability created. When liability is not created, he cannot be judged as insolvent too. So an agreement by a parent or a guardian entered into on behalf of minor is binding on him, provided it is in his benefit or for the sake of the legal responsibility. So there was one case also which we discussed, that because of the sake of the legal responsibility or legal things, the contract was binding and the things happened accordingly. Okay. So however, it has been held in an agreement of service rendered to by a father on the behalf of his daughter who is a minor is not enforceable. So anything which is directly to be done by the minor If the father has contacted for that and minor has refused to do that, that cannot be enforceable. So next is the agreement of the unsound mind. So unsoundness of mind happened because of the three things. One thing is a person can be of unsound mind when it is a permanent unsoundness, and secondly a person can be of a temporary unsound things also. In both the things the situations will be different. So for the purpose of making contract, a person must be of sound mind. If at the time he makes the contract he is incapable of understanding it for forming the judgment, rational judgment, so as to effect upon its inter. So actually, unsound mind is a person who is actually not in the senses at the time when he may be toxicated, or he may have been hypnotized or something like that. So in that situation, in that case, he will not be in position to understand the terms of the contract and will be able to decide something in his favor. So that's why the court has provided the protection to such people. Even a person who is drunk totally. So at the time when he is when a person is to be entered into a contract, it has to be ensured that a person should not be that much drunk that he is not at all able to understand the conditions of the contract as such. So agreement by person of unsound mind are void, but necessity supplied to lunatic, to any member of his family, the lunatic state, if any, may be liable. So, for example, if there is someone who has drunk a lot, and you have to you have to just send him at home, or you have to just carry him at home. So you can do all those things by which you can carry him at home itself. So at that time, nobody will be, and all those expenses which you have incurred for carrying that person to home can be recovered, as you can recover it from minor also. Yeah. So other persons which are having incapacity to contract are persons which are disqualified from entering into a contract. So sometimes the court or some act actually disqualifies a person to enter into a contract. For example, this is Oath Land Revenue Act actually provides disqualification to the oath writer, that you cannot enter into a contract. So accordingly, it cannot be done. So the alien enemy is a person is an alien when he is not a citizen of India. And even if it is a citizen of India, if he is doing his business somewhere else for that, and the war has broken out with that country, so he will be called an alien enemy, and he is not at all qualified to enter into a contract in India. So any agreement with such type of person for that time will be totally void. Further, foreign sovereign and ambassadors. Foreign sovereign ambassadors have come to India on basis of the friendly relationship with that company, with that country. So if someone is in India and is having a friendly relation, we cannot just bind him in any contract, and may not and just in order to avoid the further court disputes and all that. So we have this in Indian Contract Act. It is written that a foreign sovereign and ambassadors will not be eligible to enter into contract. But if they want to enter into a contract, they can do with the help of their agents over here, which who will be responsible for them. Professional persons in England, barrister at law are prohibited by etiquettes of their profession from suing for their fees. So, but this is not a condition in India. So this is again a difference. So the doctors for their fees, or you can say the barristers or lawyers for their fees, they cannot sue any other people. But in India, they can do it. So there is a difference in the Indian law and the English law regarding this. So India, there is no such disability. As a barrister or advocate, he can always sue for his fees, or any other liability for which any other person is responsible. Corporations are the artificial persons created by law, so you cannot compel any corporation to marry someone. So because a company is an artificial person, it cannot marry. And further, there are certain clauses in the memorandum of association beyond which a company cannot go. So the memorandum of association determines the scope of the operation of the company beyond which the company cannot go, and any contract which is done beyond the scope of the company is void. So it will be a equal responsibility of person who is entering into a contract with company is that he has to see the memorandum of association and determine the scope within which he can enter into a contract with that particular person, or otherwise if he does so, then anything which is beyond the powers is said to be totally void under the law, and it will be ultra vires act. Ultra vires is something beyond the powers and it will be null and void. Further, married women, this is also a clause which is very old. Now married women are also equally eligible to enter into a contract. So there is no difference in men and women in India regarding their contractual capacity. So married women, a woman whether married or single can enter into a contract in the same way as man can do. She can deal with her in her property and in any manner she likes, provided of course she is a major and is of a sound mind. So previously under the previously under this English law, the Married Women and Tortfeasors Act 1935. Before this, the husband was responsible for all the acts done by the wife. So you cannot hold directly the wife responsible during that time. But after that, this is again equally applicable in England too. So this was the yesterday's thing. So today we will be going with free consent. A consent is said to be free when it is not at all affected by coercion, undue influence, misrepresentation, fraud, or mistake. So when we are talking of any consent, consent has to be the meeting of minds. So when we are entering into an agreement, agreement itself means agreement, means we are mentally agree on the same point at the same time in the same sense. Both the parties have met. So besides this, even if both the parties have met, if both the parties have met on certain things at the same time in the same sense and with the same minds, but at the same time, if that consent is affected by either threatening, coercion is actually threatening, or influence, undue influence means a person has unduly influenced other person without giving any threatening, but the influence is like that the other person has actually agreed to enter into a contract which is detrimental to his interest. So in that case, the undue influence is in picture. Next is the misrepresentation, and if there is some misrepresentation of facts, then also the aggrieved party to whom the misrepresentation has been done will be aggrieved and will be able to resign the contract. The same is the case with fraud. If you can, by fraud, if someone has taken consent of someone else and want to execute it, it cannot be executed. At the same time, when mistake is there, that the contract has been entered by mistake, so in that case it will be void. But in case of 1, 2, 3, and 4, it will be voidable at the option of other party. In case of mistake, it is void because mistake is happening from the both the sides. So the things will be void as if it has never. It will be not be binding on any of those. But in case of 1, 2, 3, 4, the contract is actually one person is agreeing to it, but other person is having, he is also agreed, but his agreement, or you can say his consent, is affected by 4 of these. So if he wants, then he can resign the contract. If he wants to continue with the contract, he can continue with the contract. So when the consent is not free, the contract may be turned out to be void or voidable according to the nature of law and consent. When there is no consent, there can be no contract, as the case of mutual mistake, and that mutual mistake, that is the last point, will be totally void. So whether there is a consent but it is not free, the contract is generally voidable at the option of the party whose consent is not free. Okay. Case of misrepresentation, fraud, coercion, undue influence, the consent of one party is induced or caused by supposed existence of the fact which did not exist. So in that case, the contract can be rescinded at the option of the aggrieved party. So out of this, we will discuss the things one by one. So today we will be discussing about the coercion and undue influence. So before I start this, please tell me if you are having any problem regarding whatsoever I have taught you just now. Any question you want to ask or anything you want to say. Come on. Or if you are okay, I can proceed further.
I have a doubt, sir. One
Yeah,
doubt,
yeah,
sir.
please.
Sir,
Yeah,
Sir, for example, a minor has entered into a contract and he has borrowed, say, amount of 20,000,
Okay.
and he has spent the whole money. He has spent 20,000 full. So if he has acquired something
Yeah.
in return,
Huh.
for example, if he's acquired a property, so in
Okay.
case of solving the problem, sir, the property will be transferred to the person, or
Absolutely. Bilkul. The property will be again sold, and the other person from whom he has actually taken it back, means from whom he has taken it, will be made good. Actually, what happens? It is just like have you seen some kids snatching some lollipop from some other person? You might have observed that. So what we do,
yes, sir.
and if the kid has eaten that lollipop, right? We cannot do anything. Can we do
Yes,
anything?
sir.
We cannot
No,
do
sir.
anything. So, but still, that kid is having the lollipop in the hand. So what we will tell him? Chalo beta, wapas de do, or
Hmm.
otherwise we will snatch the things and give it back to the person whom it actually belongs to. So the
Belongs
same
to.
is the case. Yeah, same is the case with the minor also, my dear. Minor are also some kids. They are also having some lollipop. They actually do mischiefs because they are allowed to do mischiefs. Court
Okay.
has given, or the law has given them all the rights to do all the mischiefs whatever they can. Okay, so if they do mischiefs, then they can be actually, they can be excused. They cannot be punished, but at least the things can be made good, whatsoever is there in their head. I hope this lollipop example has clarified you each and everything.
Yes, sir. Perfect, sir.
Very good. Anyone, anything
Thank
else?
you, sir.
So I love when you ask questions. Come on, if you have any question, you can ask. So we have sufficient time because I have just taken the things in a very fast manner, but it seems that you all have understood the things in the way I have made you understand. So anyone, anything else?
No, sir.
No one? Where is our Jai Shri Ram today? I can't see him. Lamaji is not there. He is not there. Anyways, so let me just proceed further with the remaining things. So quotient is defined under section 15. Now how the quotient has been defined under section 15. Now see, the committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by Indian Penal Code, or unlawful detaining or threatening to detain any property to the prejudice of any person, whatever, with the intention of causing any person enter into an agreement. So there has to be a threatening. Okay. So threatening is must if you want to prove a quotient in the court of law. Okay. At the same time, what is there? Threatening to commit any act which is forbidden by Indian Penal Code. I hope you know about Dafa 302, Dafa 307, and Dafa 302 is murder. Dafa 307 is attempt to murder, which actually you might have been listening all these things in the Hindi movies. Okay, and one more section you might have listened about 420 for Dafa 420. Actually, you might have seen that, or you might be aware of the movie Shri 420 of Raj Kapoor, which is a very famous movie of the time. I hope you know about that. Anyone? श्री
No,
420,
sir.
प्यार हुआ इकरार हुआ, गाना नहीं सुना क्या?
गाना तो सुना है।
गाना सुना है, मूवी नहीं
हाँ, तो
देखी।
ये जो मूवी का नाम है ना बेटा, ये श्री 420 है मूवी का नाम। आप मूवी का थोड़ा ध्यान भी रखा करो, उसके गाने के तो मजे ले लेते हो। रमैया वस्ता भैया गाना सुना? रमैया वस्ता भैया,
ये तो मूवी है।
ऐसा
अरे वो मूवी अभी आई है बेटा। रमैया वस्ता भैया एक पुराना गाना है जो इस वाली मूवी में भी है। रमैया वस्ता भैया सुना है?
सर सुना है, ऐसे सर नई मूवी लाए तो बहुत पुरानी लगता है।
बेटा यार मैं पुराना आदमी क्या करूं यार, और मैंने जो मूवीज देखी उसी के एग्जांपल दे पाता हूँ लोगों को, तो मैं गाना सुनाता हूँ। ये ऐड खत्म हो जाए तब तो गाना चालू हो ना, फालतू के ऐड बताते हैं। हाँ ये सुनो। सुनिए ट्यून।
Yes, sir.
ओके सो ये जो गाना है वो श्री 420 पिक्चर का गाना। अभी ये जो उसके ये जब मूवी थी ना श्री 420, उसके बाद से हम लोग जो फ्रॉड करते हैं उसको बोलते हैं अरे ये तो 420 है। डू यू नो दैट? ऐसा ऐसा बोलते हैं ना अपन, ये तो 420 है यार। हैव यू हर्ड दिस और नॉट? This has actually become a slang that whosoever is doing a fraud is said to be actually 420 is a section 420 of Indian Penal Code. So let me just come to the point, back to the point, or you can say if you are doing or threatening to do any act which is prohibited under section 1 under any section of Indian Penal Code, so you will be, or you are, if you are coercing someone or you are threatening someone, so that act which is forbidden under IPC and you are doing it, so it will be counted as a coercion. So there is a case over here. Case name is Rangaya Kamma versus Alvar Setti. So in this case, what happened? A widow was there, and widow, because her husband died, that's why she became widow. And the people of the community actually uh, they just refused to remove the body of the husband for cremation because this widow was not obeying them to adopt the son. So the son was not of widow because had there been son of the widow itself, so there was no need of adoption, but they wanted her to adopt some other son of some other person, and she refused. And then they told that okay, we will not remove the body. And then widow, okay, then she agreed to just accept that okay, I will accept this particular person, this bacha as a for adoption. And then afterwards, when the body was cremated, she refused. Now she agreed before and refused afterwards. She can do it. Why? Why she can do it? Because there was something which there was a coercion of, that she was afraid of, that if the body will not be cremated, the last things will not be done, then it would be a mental trauma for her, which has to be done. So she actually then so afterwards, when this adoption deed was signed by her and was enforced in the court of law, she won the case and said that she cannot just do it because she was under the coercion. Okay, so in the same way, for example, A gives a severe beating to B and makes him sign a promissory note of certain amount in favor of A. So A has beaten B, either A has beaten or he is having a threatening to beat, or someone at the gunpoint. Okay, someone at the, just see this example. If A at the gunpoint of pistol asks B to execute a promissory note in his favor and save his life, so he can avoid the agreement as the consent was not free, and he was actually compelled to just to sign the agreement, and then afterwards he can refuse. Why? Because he was compelled to do the same under the coercion. So anything which you are going to do or you are compelling. Now one more thing is there, that there can be a threatening of the third party also. It will also amount to coercion. So even one more thing is, if you detain some property of someone else and you are threatening him to just not to give the property if the deal has not been entered, then also it is a coercion. For example, there was one case again, Muthiya versus Muthu Kurrappa. It was a case of 1927. In this case, an agent refused to hand over the books of accounts to the principal and to the new agent also. So Mr. A was one of the person who was actually accountant of someone, and the books of, because he wanted to remove his he wanted to terminate his service as an accountant. He had to hand over the accounts to someone, but he refused. Why? Because this Mr. A has taken some money from the person whose accounts he was preparing, and that advance money he wanted to adjust against this book. So at the instance, that person wrote a deed that, okay, fine, I relieve you from all your liabilities. But then afterwards, when after recovering the book of accounts, he refused. Then he filed a suit against for recovery of his money, and he recovered it. And this person who has actually got himself released again become, he has to pay the remaining amount to the person whose accounts he was preparing. Why? Because he was coerced at that time to just relieve him from his liabilities, but actually it was not there. So this is something which is related to. No. Acha, one more thing is there. The place of coercion is also one thing that even if the place of coercion is far away from India. Suppose, for example, a ship is coming to India and a person in the ship tells the other person, if you will not sell your watch to me for suppose rupees 50, I will throw you in the waters. So at that time he agreed to sell his watch to 50. He told that, okay, whenever the ship will reach Mumbai, I will give you my watch for rupees 50. So the ship reached Mumbai, and this actually deed he gave in writing. So ship reached Mumbai and the person filed a suit against him for recovery of the watch. Then he refused that, because you have threatened me to throw in the water. Now I will not give you this watch, and this watch again belongs to me. And he won the case also. So place of coercion also doesn't means anything. So even a coercion may be from a party to some other person also. Suppose, for example, A has threatened B to sell his car for rupees 2 lakhs. The car is costing rupees 20 lakhs. So he is threatening B to just sell his car for rupees 2 lakhs, and he has agreed to sell the car for rupees 2 lakhs, and both have the entered into an agreement. At the time of execution of the agreement, B refused. Why? Because he was threatened. At the same time, suppose, for example, A threatens C. The C is the wife of B, and tell his husband to sell the car. Still, this is a quotient. This will amount to a quotient, because even between, not between the two parties, it can be, the quotient can be done to some other party also. It can be to the some other party or to the stranger also. Now, for one more thing, even if there is a threatening to commit a suicide, it will also be treated as a portion. So there was one case of Chikkam Amiraju versus Chikkam Sheshma. So in this case also something happened, that the husband actually told his wife and son that I will commit suicide if you will not transfer this piece of property to my brothers. So they actually executed the deed of transfer, and then afterwards, when the deed was to be executed, they just wrote a deed, and when the deed was to be executed, and it was refused. Why? Because of happening this coercion. So this is all about coercion. So I hope you are able to understand the coercion. Is there any doubt? If you want to ask any question, you can please ask. Yes, anyone, any doubt about coercion? Threatening? Okay, so let me take undue influence. Chirayu, should I proceed?
Stop, please.
Okay, Ujjwal Gupta. Ujjwal Gupta, can you tell me what is coercion? Is Ujjwal Gupta there in the class? Not there. Ujjwal Gupta is not there. Okay, I will mark him absent then. Fine. So Shashank Khosla. Shashank Khosla. I am writing all these things. I will mark you absent if you will not answer. Shashank Khosla is also absent. Sahil Khandelwal.
sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sahil. What is coercion?
Sir, what is?
Coercion. I have just now told you about coercion in contract.
The thing is, I have internet problem, sir. So
You are
your
not having
voice
problem.
cutting out.
You speak.
Yes,
I am
sir?
just. You speak. I am listening to you.
No, sir, I didn't hear you before correctly, so I'm not sure about the answer.
Okay. You tell me what is contract.
The contract is a kind of agreement between two people when they promise each other to complete their parts of the contract agreement. That is.
What was the equation which I gave you about the contract in the initial class, the first class which I took? Contract is
I
equal to
don't know, sir.
contract is equal to anyone from the class?
Yes, sir.
The agreement plus enforceability.
Very good. Very good.
Yes.
It's an agreement.
Excellent. Excellent. Fine. So let me proceed further with the undue influence now. Okay. So undue influence is under section. So remember, coercion was under section 15. Undue influence is under section 1616. So these all things are in from 15, 16, 17, 18 and 21. Okay. 15 is coercion, 16 is undue influence, 17 is your fraud, 18 is your misrepresentation, and 21 is mistake. So there are other sections also in between. We will go through that too. Okay. So under section 16 of the Indian Contract Act, a contract is said to be produced by undue influence, where the relations subsisting between the parties are such that one of the party is in position to dominate the will of other, and uses that position to obtain an unfair advantage over other. So two things are here. One is that a dominant position and use of that dominant position to take the unfair advantage. Okay, so the relationship over here has to be like that it is having a dominant position over other, and at the same time it can add, and he has used that dominant position in order to take advantage. Okay, so subsection 2 of section 16 provides that a person is deemed to be in a position to dominate the will of another where he holds a real or apparent authority over other, or where he stands in a fiduciary relationship over other. Let us just take example, minor and a guardian. There is a fiduciary relationship between minor and the guardian, trustee and the beneficiary, solicitor and the client. Now see, the solicitor and the client, this relationship is like as if one is having an influence over other. Why? Because of this being a solicitor and the client, one can actually tell him that, okay, I will save you from law, or I will save you from the things, or I will get your things done, but you do this for me. Okay, and even there can be a relationship between you can say a guru and a disciple. No, there can be a relationship between guru and a disciple. Okay, so guru can influence disciple in order to execute certain deeds in his favor. Okay, so that is, today there was a news of Asaram Bapu, who has been convicted of the offense of a lot of offenses he has been convicted of, and today in the morning when I was just reading the newspaper, there I found that though he was subject to the death sentence, but his death sentence has now been converted into lifetime imprisonment, something like that was there. So a person who has taken the because of his undue influence may have influenced someone else to transfer their property. These all cases were there against him. So this is something which is related to a guru and disciple, where one is holding a position which is you can say influential over other, and because of that position he has entered into a contract with other. So there is, however, no presumption of undue influence in relation to the creditor and debtor husband. Now these relationships are at par. Creditor and debtor relationship is at par. Husband-wife relationship is also at par unless wife is a Pardhanishin. These days wives have become dominating. Okay, but time is changing, so we should accept that. Anyway, landlord and tenant, this again relationship is at par. So in these cases, the party has to prove that undue influence has been exercised on him, there being no presumption to existence of undue influence. But in case of minor guardian, trustee beneficiary, solicitor client, doctor patient, disciple and devotee. So in these situations, there you need not to even go for whether there is undue influence, because the relation is like that it shows that there is a undue influence. Next is where he makes a contact with the person whose mental capacity is temporarily or permanently affected by reason of age, illness, or mental or bodily distress. So if the other person is having such a thing that suppose for example in old age, the old parents, they are not at all capable of taking the decision. So in that case they may depend, their situation may depend on their sons, who may take a undue advantage of keeping them up or all that, and can transfer some property or can ask them to give some gift to them, and all that happens. So in such a situation, if it is influenced by undue influence and the parties want to rescind the contract, they can do it in the court of law. So there are certain illustrations. For example, A has advanced money to his son B during his son B during his minority. So when at the minority he has advanced some money. So upon B coming to the age, by misuse of his parental influence, he obtains a bonds for the amount more than that. Okay, and in that case, because of the undue influence, he is doing it. So it is not at all accepted. Similarly, a man is infibulated by a disease or age induced by B's influence over him and his mental attendant to agree to pay B an unreasonable amount. Suppose doctors can also claim for an unreasonable amount for saving some life. Okay, so if the amount the claim is unreasonable, then the undue influence can be proved at that time. And because doctor and patient are in a relation, it is such a relation where undue influence can easily be applied. So the onus of proof will be on the doctor that undue influence has not been applied. So one more case is that where a parent stands in a fiduciary relationship towards his child, and any transaction between them by which any benefit is produced by a parent to himself or to a third party. Okay, so here in this case, what happened? A favor was provided from the property of the child by the parents to a third party, their relative. Okay, so it is already assumed that if parents are there, definitely, and the child is minor, there will be some undue influence because of which such transfer has been done. So in such a case, the person, that is that third party and the parents, will have to prove in the court of law that the child was having all the free advices. He actually did it by his own will, and there is nothing like that for which they both of them can be held responsible. So the onus of proof is a big thing. So under undue influence, if any property has been transferred from one person to other, so that can be avoided by the court of law in favor of the person who has been unduly influenced. So whether there is a presumption of undue influence, the presumption can be rebutted by showing that, now see, if these three things are there, there may be undue influence, but if these three things are properly proved, in that case, the undue influence will not be said to happen. What are these three things? Number one, there is a full disclosure of all the material facts. Second, there is a proper and adequate consideration for the thing which is done. And third thing, the weaker party was in receipt of independent legal advice. So he was free to ask anyone. There was no actually undue influence, or he has been given a proper exposure to take advice from anyone before entering into the decision which he is entering into. So in that case, the undue influence can not be proved. So there are, and further, if there is a transaction with a Parda Nashin woman, a Parda Nashin woman is actually a woman which is from a total, she is secluded from the entire world. So there's a woman who goes to, but at the same time, the women are also taking undue advantage of the law. So women who is going regularly to the court, she is fixing the rents, she is communicating with everyone. Just because she is having a burqa, she cannot claim to be a Pardanishin woman. And this was decided in this Ismail Musafi versus Hafiz book case in 1906. So in the same way, in the principle to be applied to the transaction with Pardanishin women are founded on the equity and good conscience, and accordingly a person who contracts with the Pardanishin woman has to prove, that person has to prove that no undue influence was used and that she was free and independent to take advice of anyone, and she has also fully understood the contract and it was her full willingness to enter into a contract like that. So that this the other person has to prove it. So if not only in this case, but in case of any of the undue influence, the other person has to prove that there was no undue influence. Otherwise, by default, seeing the relationship, uh, the the law will or the court will consider as if there is a undue influence. Unconscionable transactions are those transactions which are actually amounting to exorbitant or very high profits. For example, a person has approached some other person to for a loan because he is badly in the need of money, and the money lender has told that he will charge 50% interest rate. So 50% interest rate is exorbitantly very high, which is totally unreasonable. So in such a case, it can be assumed that there can be a undue influence because that other person has now become ready to give whatever is being asked. So he may get influenced by it. Otherwise, in the normal course of time, a fairly high consideration may not be considered as an undue influence, and at that time the court sees the situation. So it has been held that an urgent need of money on the part of the borrower does not itself place the lender in the position of dominance, dominating the will of the other, and in such a situation the things have to be proved by the person who is taking the money, not by the person who is giving the money. Okay, so this was all about your today's uh, undue influence and the this we are, because we are going with free consent. Tomorrow we will be studying the 3 points, that is misrepresentation, fraud, and mistake. So tomorrow we will be taking it up further. So meanwhile, what you can do is distinguish between coercion and undue influence. So this is what you have to do. You have to just write it. Chirayu has already prepared the email on in which you have to mail this your uh, assignments. Write it down on your on a piece of paper. Take a photograph, a good photograph, it should be visible, and mail it to him so that I can evaluate it afterwards. Any question from anyone?
Can you please repeat the assignment?
Assignment is you have to, okay, let me just write the assignment in the chat box. Write differences between coercion and influence. Okay, coercion and undue influence, that is section 15 and 16 of Indian Contract Act 1872. Okay, I hope you have received that. So by tomorrow I need the answers for this. By default, everything will be scheduled, means whatever assignment I will give you, you have to submit it on the very next day. And at the end of the week, we will be collecting all the assignments whatsoever has been given to you during the week. Okay. So I'm ending the class now. Let me take the attendance once again. So in class, those who are present are Abhay Jain, Abhay Singh Shekhawat, Abhishek Sisodia, Ashutosh, Azan,
Present, sir.
Chirayu, Deepak, Dipendra, Dipti,
Present,
Devyanshi,
sir.
Gaurav Sharma, Harshit Gupta, Anish,
Present, sir.
Kashish, Khushi,
Present,
Lagan,
sir.
Lakshya, Lucky, Anish, Mihir,
Lakshya present.
Chan, Pranav Sharma, Priya
Present,
Soni,
sir.
Raghav Malpani, Rishabh Goyal, Rishi, Ritik Yadav, Sagar,
Present, sir.
Sagar, Sahil, Shashank, Shriyansh,
Present, sir.
Shubhang,
Ramanjan present,
Shajal,
sir.
Present, sir.
Present,
Sushil,
sir.
Tarun
Shubham
Singh,
present.
Ujjwal Gupta, Vaishnavi, Vikramaditya, Yashashvi and Yashpal.
Present, sir.
Present, sir.
Vikramaditya present.
Present, sir.
Sir, Raghav present.
Fine. So actually you need not to say present because I am just taking the names for my sake because you are already there and you are visible over here. Okay, so from tomorrow and onwards, don't say present sir and all because it disturbs the sound. Because I have to take other name and your yes sir comes in between. So don't do it. It is just for the sake, and even I can download the attendance when you log in, when you log out. So there's a complete list for it. So, but still, for the sake of means it's a formality at the beginning at the end because I have a habit to take the attendance at the both the times. So that's why I do it. And until unless I do that, I don't think class is completed. So and recording is also there. So your when I speak the name, your things are being recorded. Okay. So thank you all and have a nice day. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.